everyone, and welcome to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. And today is day 4 of Cavemas. Now today I am actually going to follow on from yesterday's video, and I am going to be colouring the picture that I drew yesterday. If you would also like to have this picture to colour, I have it in PDF form, so just drop me a note in the comments and I can send it over in an email to you. Also, if you are a member of the Colouring Connection Facebook group, which used to be Simple Art for Adults, then I will also be posting it in there. If you are a colourist, it's a great Facebook group to join. Everybody is so awesome and it's a very active group as well. So feel free to go and check that out. I shall leave the link in the description. As I say, PDF will be available there, but if you want to contact me, drop me a comment and I'll email it over to you as well. So I am just going to gather everything together and we can get going. So here we are back again. Just before I get started, I have a fine liner here and I'm just going to fill in my reindeer's eyeball and put a little bit of a reflection in there. You all know by now I've got a thing about eyes. I always think a picture can look quite soulless if they don't have a pupil. Today I am going to be using my Derwent Inktense pencils. I am doing this on mixed media paper. This is the original drawing, it's not a copy that I've printed off. I did do it on Faber-Castell mixed media paper. So this is the pad here. It's fairly inexpensive and I find it's quite a good all-rounder. So anyway, yes, let's get started. So I'm going to start with saddle brown and I'm just going to put down a layer of that. Now I'm going to build up the colours using my different pencils here. One of the great things about the Derwent Inktense pencils is that once they are dry, they are permanent. They're not, I say they're permanent, it takes a lot to shift them. You can actually lift some of the colour, but it's not easy to do, and you know, you'd have to go some to do it. So it means you can activate them with water and you can build up the layers as you go and just give it some really nice sort of definition, some contours, and get some really rich colour on the go anyway. They are quite vibrant anyway, as the name might suggest. Inktense, get it, yeah. But it's nice to be able to have the option to do that, and obviously your only limitation there is how much water your paper can take, and some take more than others. If you use watercolour paper, I think you could probably go forever with these pencils. However, I wasn't quite sure what medium I was going to use to colour this picture in when I was actually drawing it, so I figured that the mixed media paper was a good sort of middle point. If you can hear the sort of clip clopping noise in the background, Pip is with me in the cave, which is baby collie, and she's got one of these nyla bones, which are sort of hard plastic bones to chew on. So apologies if you hear a bit of rumbling about, but I think you all know by now as well that I'm very rarely in the cave on my own these days. I usually have a canine companion of some description. What configuration that is varies. Jock's here, he's just chilling out, and as I say, Pip's got her little bone, so she's quite happy too. I think the Jack Russell is in her bed. We're not long back from a really big long walk, and we went to pick out our Christmas tree that Mr. Jem is going to cut down for us in a day or so. So there was a lot of walking about today, so I think Jack Russell's pooped, to be perfectly honest. I figured out where I got this water brush on the back of the hand thing from. I've always done it and I could never figure out where I got it from, and I was watching one of Peter Hewitt's videos the other day and she does it, and when I started to colour, she was one of my main influences, so that is a habit that I have picked up directly from watching her videos, which I think is really, really funny. So I'm glad I've solved that mystery, because it was something that was bugging me because I had no idea why I did it. Yeah, so I'm just sort of putting this down as a base layer, and this is saddle brown for anyone that is using Inktense or colouring along or is just curious, and it's a really nice colour, I like it. So we'll just get that down and we can move on to another part of the picture while that is drying. As I say, it does have to be dry before it becomes permanent in inverted commas. The fine liners that I use are archival, so they will not bleed with the water, which is great. And my outline for this reindeer is quite thick as well, so I've got quite of, you know, a bit of play there. I don't have to be particularly accurate, perhaps around the eye here. Might have to take my time a bit more. But generally speaking, you can just sort of squish your brush about and everything will be okay. Okay, I'm going to go with mustard here for the base layer on these antlers. So kind of, when I'm using these pencils, I kind of use them like I would my normal pencils. I'm just really using a layer of water in between each layer of pencil. That's really the only difference. There are other circumstances where that is not the case, but generally when I'm doing something like this, that is what I tend to do. I had an absolute ball with these pencils in one of Karolina Kubikowska's books not that long ago. In fact, I did a video on that. I'm sure I did a video on that. I'll put a link in the card here if you want to go and watch me do that, and I'll also leave it in the description as well. And that was just a case of literally just chucking down the colour and going over the top of it with a water brush. It was great fun. I really enjoyed that. I'm using my fine tip water brush here as well, just because the areas that I'm going over are quite small. I may change to a larger brush for some of the other parts, but for stuff like this it's quite fiddly, so there we go. I have got my swatch book off to the side here. Here it's here. And I'm just sort of picking colours as I go. I didn't plan anything out. I just wanted to have a sort of relaxing, festive time. This is Poppy Red. Now I'm going to try and preserve a bit of a highlight here as well, because we want a shiny nose. I think the reds really come into their own with these pencils. You know, they are one of the more vibrant colours. And it definitely, even that very, very light layer there has given me, you know, quite a depth of colour, which is nice. Obviously you want the piece to feel as uniform as possible, so I'm going to continue on with this Poppy Red, and I'm going to come down here and put a bit of colour on my bow. I can feel my nose starting to run. I'm going to try not to sniff too much. As I say, I'm not long back from walking my dogs, and the temperatures are hovering around 0. We are forecast some snow tomorrow, which will be the first snow of the year, but if it snows at this time of year, it tends not to stick. We generally don't get the sort of worse weather until well into January, so I'm not expecting it to come too much tomorrow, but there has been a significant temperature drop in the last 48 hours. I'm definitely feeling it now. Just get some colour on the go down here as well. Again, I'm going to try and leave a bit of a highlight on my bow. Be a bit more careful here because my line work's a lot thinner. Get lazy and complacent. God, I'm cold. I did stop filming there just for a second to go and blow my nose because it was incredibly incredibly runny. It was feeling a bit better now. You know what it's like when you come into the warm after being outside and it's bitterly cold. It only takes a few minutes and your nose is running like a tap. I'm not complaining though, I actually really like the cold weather. Where I'm from on the west coast of Scotland originally, it's always very damp and the cold kind of like seeps into your bones, whereas here I am closer to the east coast and it's much colder, but it's a much drier cold and it's just so much easier to deal with. Right, so I'm going to take the Poppy Red and I'm going to put some on my berries here. I'm gonna have to give this a sharpen. I'm just using the Derwent pastel sharpener. It's really good because of the size of the barrels on these pencils. What I have found is though, you need to not press too hard, like push the pencil in too hard. You have to just let it kind of do it itself, because if you do press it too hard, the end, you know, your point will just crumble. But that's given me quite a reasonable point there. And just lets you get into those tighter spaces without too much hassle. See what we can do here. There we go. I have to take my time a little bit more here because I'm in a tighter space, and I have found with the Inktense pencils you do have to work quite quickly to get everything sort of blended together, so you have to find a kind of a balance. But again, it's something that comes with practice. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. And I've got for the wreath, my base colour is going to be beach green. So again, just flat colour, that's all in here. Just get that down. The good thing as well about using any water soluble pencils is when you're putting the pencil on the paper, you don't have to be ridiculously accurate and get right up to the edge of the line art, because you can use your water brush or your paintbrush to push the pigment out to the edge. So, you know, precision is not a necessity, although some people still like to do it anyway. But when I'm just putting this first flat layer of colour on, I tend not to be too careful. But funnily enough, I'm the same when I'm colouring with normal pencils. That first light layer that I always put down of a particular colour, I don't really take much care over it, and it's just exactly the same thing here. I don't do anything different. It's probably mostly laziness, I'm going to be honest, but I would rather save my patience and you know, the attention to detail for the more detailed parts. I'm going to use my big brush here just to save me some time. It's got a much bigger point on it. You can still get the precision along the edges because they do come to a really fine point, but just when you're working in a larger area, it's nice to have more bristles to shove about, as it were. And again, it's just a sort of time-saving exercise. Not that I'm in a particular rush, I have to say. The day that I am filming this, it is a Friday, and it is now coming into early evening. Yeah, it's 5:20, and I don't have anything pressing to do until Mr. Jem is ready to eat. So we normally don't eat our evening meal till probably about 7:30 at night, unless we're both hungry before that. Obviously, then we just go ahead and eat. But generally speaking, we tend to be quite late lunchers just because of work. So, you know, an early dinner's not really for us because we're not really hungry. So this is generally the slot in my sort of daily routine. This is the time of day when I tend to film a lot of my videos, and it's just because it's where I have time. I've finished my own work, and anything that needs doing outside in the farm is usually dealt with by now as well, you know, if there's anything pressing. So after I've finished my own work, which I normally finish at about 3 in the afternoon, I deal a lot with dairy farmers. I do a bit of agricultural consultancy work, and dairy farmers tend to start milking you know, sometime in the afternoon. So I find that trying to get a hold of people on the phone after 3 o'clock is a bit of a pointless endeavour. So that's generally when I tend to stop. And what I do is I go and walk my dogs in the afternoon, and I come back and I get a cup of tea, and then I do all my sort of paperworky stuff for an hour or so, you know, just catch up on all that, catch up on emails and things. And then after that, the rest of the afternoon stroke early evening is my own, unless I am needed outside. So that's the sort of prime time slot for filming videos for the Colour Cave. And it's really nice to have that because the dogs, because they've been out and been walked, they're generally quite quiet, and you know, they're quite settled. Pip maybe not so much, she's just on the go all the time, she's like, you know, the Duracell bunny. But generally speaking, it's a good time for me. The only downside at this time of year is the fact that it's dark. I mean, we start to lose the light at about 3 o'clock, so it's very much a case of you know, you have to put up with that. And I am a person, I like to work in natural light. It doesn't matter whether I'm drawing or colouring or whatever, I prefer to work in natural light. And in the cave there are 2 windows, so during the spring and summer months I have the luxury of having, you know, daylight, plenty of daylight for most of the day. However, in the winter, not so much. But because of how far north we are as well, you know, your daylight hours, especially now that we're into, you know, the middle of December, the daylight hours are so limited. It's not really properly light in the morning now till about 8 o'clock. If it's an overcast day, you know, where there's a lot of cloud cover, then it's later. It's probably closer to 8:30 before you can truly see what you're doing. And it's the same thing in the afternoon. If it's an overcast day, you know, you're basically, it's dark all day, and you know, you're going to have lights on in your house anyway. But really, by 3:30 at the very latest, you're on a clear day, that's it, you're starting to lose the light. So there really isn't an awful lot, you know, an awful quantity of hours in the day where you can actually do stuff in the daylight. So that's the only downside to it. But I am a person, I like the dark, and a lot of people find that really strange, but I'm more comfortable in the dark. I don't know why. I think it's maybe, you know, living in rural areas where there's no street lights and things, you become accustomed to it, and you know, it becomes a comfort to you quite quickly. And I find that in the summer months, and again, we have the opposite thing in the summer months, it's light, and there's a stage in the summer where it doesn't actually get properly dark during the night. And I find that light very intrusive eventually. I like it for the first little while after a dark winter, but there comes a point and I feel as if I can't get away from the sunlight. And again, a lot of people have said to me that that's quite an odd thing, but being a person that doesn't sleep particularly well, I think that makes it worse, because you wake up and it's light, you go to bed and it's light, and if you wake up during the night, it's light. So I think as well, years of working in milking parlours, again, it doesn't take much before you are going to a morning milking in the dark. It's still dark when you come out, and if you go to an afternoon milking, it's starting to get dark, and when you come out, it's dark. I'm used to driving in the dark as well, and on country roads I actually prefer driving in the dark, because if they are twisty and bendy, when there is no light, you can see headlights coming the other way so that you know something is coming, whereas during the daylight you can head round a bend and not know that something's there, like a tractor going into a field or whatever. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of the dark. I like it. I also really like it at night, especially now, you know, we're coming to, you know, we're in that sort of festive period, and see having a nice warm cozy house, drawing all your blinds shut, and see settling down in front of the fire with a really good book and a blanket. That is one of my absolute ultimate favourite things to do ever. It's just, oh, it's so relaxing, and you know, you sort of take breaks and you just sit and look at the fire, which again is something that I find really relaxing. I had a friend tell me that apparently having a fish tank, you know, having an aquarium and sitting watching fish is supposed to be really good for your blood pressure and your stress levels, and also stroking a cat as well is supposed to be very good for that. And up there with that apparently is watching a burning fire, and I can totally see that, because I just love it, absolutely love it. So I actually quite like winter. I'm a person that likes winter. I think as well the fact that I don't do well in heat. I'm okay in the heat. I don't really like working in it. Again, when it's manual labour outside, it is not nice when it's warm. It's all right if you're sitting sunbathing with a nice cocktail or something, but when you actually have to work in it, it's not great. But also when I'm running as well, I do know my internal temperature gauge does not work in the summer, and when I start running in anything above sort of 17 degrees Celsius, I find it very uncomfortable and my performance suffers greatly. I just do not run well in the heat, and I never have done. My internal combustion chamber just goes daft. So yeah, I much prefer the the winter weather. But we're so accustomed here in Scotland to just it being wet and windy most of the time. Anything else is kind of a bonus. So these lovely, really crisp, cold mornings, I just think they're amazing. I love them. See, it is quite yellowish. I find it interesting here that I took the liberty of putting a highlight on the bell in ink, but I didn't do that anywhere else in the picture. Amateurs. Again, I'm going to use my larger brush here, just make sure that there's no green left on it. You can see how quickly I'm covering that area with this big brush. It's fab. I say it is a real benefit when you're using the Inktense pencils, because you do have to work reasonably briskly to get, you know, make sure that you don't end up with these sort of streaky lines where the ink started to dry. I have got a stray bristle in this and it keeps poking out. I'm going to have to pull it off. I don't think you'll be able to see it on the camera. Light olive. Doesn't look very light from here right enough. Oh. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, that looks okay. I did want it to be different from the base colour of the wreath. For obvious reasons, I would like it to stand out, so. But let's just get a little bit of the stripes going on our candy cane. Get that filled in as well. This is a really tight space, so I'm just going to have to be super careful here. Don't make a mess. There we go, I'm going okay. Now I'm just going to use the one colour with this, so I'm going to make it quite heavy down at the bottom there and just graduate that up ever so slightly. It does actually look very black when you see it on the paper, but when you start to add the water to it, that soon sorts it out. Do you see what I mean though about just using the one colour and still being able to get that gradient? I mean, you could easily say, or you could easily think that I've used at least 2 coloured pencils there without too much effort. One done. Now again, the light source here and where I'm leaving the gradient, you know, at its palest is not technically correct, but I've talked about this before. Sometimes it's just about aesthetics, and that's pretty much what I'm going for. It isn't a particularly realistic picture, so I'm not going to concern myself with it too much. I'd just rather it looked pretty. I'm also going to do the inside of her ear. I kind of want to call her Nancy. Don't ask me where I've got Nancy from, because I don't know, but I think she looks like a Nancy. If you guys want to call her something different, feel free to let me know in the comments. Nancy, I don't have no idea where I got that from. Well, let's have cadmium yellow, and I think I'll also colour in maybe this bauble here in the cadmium yellow as well. Again, just sort of trying to keep, you know, some sort of cohesiveness in the picture to a degree. That would be quite nice. I'm just filling in the tops of these baubles. That is a tiny area. Don't even know if that's going to do anything. Not be able to see it, but that's fine. Still undecided about these beads. I don't really know what to do. The other thing as well is I've got this sort of underside of my deer as well, and I would really want a sort of biscuit type colour. However, I'm not entirely fussed about what we've got in the range of Inktense pencils. I think I'm going to go with tan, and I'm just going to graduate this out. Again, kind of like I did with the hoofs, and just try and keep it as light as possible. I'll see how this goes. If I don't like it, I can always just print off another copy of my picture and start again. See, that's quite dark under there. I'm not sure if I like that at all. Let's try and wiggle it out a bit. Well, that's not too bad. I can live with that. I think I've decided I'm going with purple. I'm going to go with purple for my beads. I do find it quite confusing with these Inktense pencils when you put them down on the paper when they're dry, and sometimes you look at what you've done and you think, oh, what have I done? But once you get your water going on it, it turns out a-okay, everything's all right. I mean, this to me, I don't know what it looks like on the monitor. It looks quite purpley on the monitor, but in the, you know, to the naked eyeball here, it just looks like a really dark sort of indigo blue. And see, that's what kind of gives me the panic a little bit. I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? It's all part of the excitement, isn't it? I did contemplate this evening, whilst I was doing this video, on having an alcoholic tipple whilst I was colouring, but I decided against it. Getting all sensible in my old age. Maybe tomorrow's video. Mr. Jem's laughing because he saw the comments from the last video I did when I was quite stressed out and I had a tipple while I was filming, and he just shook his head and he's like, as if you need any encouragement. It's like trying to imply that I'm a raging alcoholic or something like that. It's like, surely not. But yes, I'm sure there'll be plenty of alcohol consumption over the next couple of days once my parents arrive. They are staying with us over the festive period, so there's usually some alcohol involved there. Try and do this without... I should have started over the other side. I normally do as well. I don't know what's my compulsion to start at the left has been, but never mind. So it's funny because when I'm drawing, I was just saying actually yesterday that I have this terrible habit of drawing things off centre because I always start in the top right hand corner, and it is like a habit that's ingrained in me, and weirdly today I have completely ignored that and gone against, you know, what I normally do when it's probably the one time that it actually matters the most. Oh wow. So for those of you that want to have a shot at colouring this yourself, I would love to see the finished article, and you can, if you do decide to colour this, you can post it and tag me on Instagram, or you can post it to the Facebook page. It is my Facebook page, it is my name, Gem Campagna, but it is for the Colour Keep That page, so feel free to leave your creations there and show me what you got. Okay, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to use this purple down here as well. I'm going to try and preserve that highlight just where I've drawn it in. I'm going to try and preserve it on this ribbon as well. I don't suppose there would be much of one here. Let's put one in anyway. Why not? We'll see how this goes. So if you want to preserve a highlight with your Inktense, then start in the palest part and work into the dark. You can pull a tiny bit of the colour into the white of the paper, just from the edge, but you have to be very, very careful. So here, see, I'm starting where the white of the paper is, and then I'm going to work into the darker part here, and that's just so that I don't pull too much of the colour across the highlight and just, you know, obliterate it completely. Okay, I think my last bauble is going to have to be red, and that's us sort of sticking with a, you know, a reasonable colour scheme here. Everything all matches. So I am going to now work from the top right down to the bottom left so that I can work a bit quicker and I'm not going over things that are, you know, still wet with my hand. So starting with those holly leaves, I want to find Ionian green. So just get some darker colour down here. And I'm also going to go back to my light olive and just add a bit more of that in there as well. Get some proper intensity on the go, and always start in the lightest area and then work into your darker colour. And again, just as I was saying before, it's so you don't pull that dark colour and muddy up your paler colours. And when you're switching over to the next part of your picture, you want to make sure that your brush is clean before you move on so that you don't cross-contaminate. I do have a scrap of paper just off to the left here, just out of camera shot, and all I'm doing is wiping my brush on that as I go, and that is to make sure that I've got all of the previous pigment off before I move on to the next part. So I'm going to need a slightly darker red, and all I want to do is just to put a sort of C shape, and again it's something that I do quite a lot. You'll have seen me do it in other videos if you are a regular viewer, and all I'm doing is going to whack in a little bit of the darker red round one side, which for me is usually the right hand side because that's what feels intuitive. If you're right-handed, you'll probably find it's round the left-hand side, like a proper C shape, as in a C going the right way. But it's one of those things that doesn't really matter. It's of no consequence whatsoever to anyone apart from you. As long as you are happy with your picture, that is all that matters. Now, the original colour I used, if I remember, was the beach green. I'm going to go leaf green. It is a different shade of green, however I think it's going to contrast quite nicely with what's already here. So we're going to do a little bit of experimentation here, which is always fun. And then I'm going to take my beach green again, and I want to really sort of intensify what's left there, because we do want this, I say we, the royal we, I do want this to be quite a sort of vibrant picture, you know. It's meant to be sort of happy and cheery and all the rest of it. Now notice how ugly that looks just with the pencil down before it's been activated. It does not look the prettiest, but that is absolutely a-okay because we are just going to fix it right now. There you are, look at the difference with that second layer down, that's really come up nicely. So now I'm just going to blend it in with this other green. And it's just to give a bit of variation and a bit of difference in the texture and the shading of the wreath. Now I'm going to vary this, I'm going to let some of it dry before I go back in. And see, in some places I'm going to blend the beach green with the leaf green. So my Christmas plans are coming along nicely. I finished wrapping all of my presents today, which is good because it's something that when you have a 17-week-old puppy running about, it is not the easiest thing to do. So glad to have got that out of the way. I still have some Christmas cards to write. I don't write a lot of Christmas cards these days. It actually came up in a topic of conversation in one of the Facebook colouring groups that I'm in, and they have a sort of question of the day, and one of them was, you know, about writing Christmas cards, and I'm like, I don't write nearly as many Christmas cards anymore, and that's I think just in this digital age it's something that's quite old-fashioned now, But there are a few people that are quite far away from me that I still like to send a card to. So, you know, I do have a few to write, but I literally will spend an hour or so writing them tonight, and then they will get posted tomorrow, and that will be it. Also as well, Mr. Jem's parents, they live in Ireland in the south, and their postal service is not renowned for being particularly accurate, reliable, or anything else for that matter. So we actually don't even bother to rush sending them a Christmas card, you know, so that it arrives in time for Christmas, because the chances is that it probably won't anyway. So there isn't really much point in worrying about it. And that's a bit of a defeatist attitude, but that is the short and skinny of it. I have no idea how they functioned as a country, because up until about 3 years ago, they didn't even have postcodes. And when you stay in a rural area, I have no idea how they even got their mail, like, at all, ever. I was fascinated by that. So now they have caught up from the Dark Ages, and they now have postcodes, and it has made not one jot of a difference to their postal system. Oh dear. I always say that in the south of Ireland, nobody's in a hurry to do anything apart from drive fast on the roads, and that is the truth. The standard of driving in the south of Ireland, I have never experienced anything like it, and I'm talking about not even compared to on the continent, you know, France and Italy, and they're pretty, you know, they're pretty scary drivers. They don't have a patch on the Irish, they really don't. It was hilarious, but when you're experiencing it for the first time, it is not fun. Not fun at all. However, yeah, so anyway, back to Christmas cards. Yes, I'm going to write some Christmas cards later on tonight. That'll probably be the extent of my festive duties for this evening, and for today. Tomorrow we are on the big house clean. We do a massive deep clean just before Christmas, and Mr. Jem helps me with that, and he is off this weekend, so he has been inadvertently volunteered to do it with me tomorrow and Sunday. So that's like the not fun part of Christmas. However, it needs to be done. So you can't have all the good stuff all of the time. That's just not possible. So yeah. But once we've got that out of the way, I think that's all the rubbish stuff dealt with. After that, it's all good stuff. We've got a tree to put up, and food to organise, and that kind of thing. So that's going to be pretty cool. I've got a few days at work next week, and then I am all done, and that is us. We are ready. Now, just bearing in mind, see, this is pre-recorded because we are doing a video every day, so this is significantly before you're actually seeing the video. So it sounds like I'm really disorganised, but I'm actually very organised. Perhaps too organised sometimes. Okay, so you can see the wreath effect starting to come out quite nicely now, and I've sort of done this little patch down here, so that's coming along pretty nicely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the rest of the wreath, and I'm going to speed this part up because I would like to finish the picture with you guys here. So I'll catch you up just shortly. So now I'm going to go back to my chili red, if I can find it amongst all these pencils, and I'm just going to do what I did up here with all the other red parts of the picture. So I'm going to give Nancy a bit of an upgrade on her shiny nose. You can see that even without activating it with the water, the difference that makes just straight away. Oh, look at that, lovely. Lovely, lovely. Nice shiny nose. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. Again, I'm not really following the rules per se in terms of highlights and shadows and stuff, but I'm basically having fun, so I don't care. Caution to the wind once again. I'm getting quite wayward, aren't I? Getting overconfident with this stuff now. Oh, there we go, and I've gone over the lines. Fail. Once again, complete lack of professionalism. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, and down to the bow now. Now I'm going to think about this a bit more sensibly and take my time a little bit more. I do want darker in at the knot and also these creases, and I kind of want it darker in this sort of area. Now I think what I'll do is I'll do it, lean a bit heavier down there and a bit heavier in here. Please. And start from that lighter area and just work that in, and then I work into these darker parts here, and I can pull some of that red out a little bit if I feel it's, you know, a bit wishy-washy elsewhere, like round here maybe. Just clean that brush off, and then I can blend that very slightly around here. There, that's not bad. See how much more life it gives it. And down here, I'm just going to put in the shadow under the bell and then graduate it out. Again, you know, the laws of the light and dark's not really coming into it here, to be honest. I just want to make it look nice. And that's okay sometimes, you know, it's not, no one says that you have to follow the rules. I've heard the saying often, as long as you know the rules, then you can break them. I don't know how I feel about that, but I suppose, in a way, that's true. But I mean, there are times where I will stick quite rigidly to putting, you know, shadows in places and things. It just depends on, number one, my mood, and it also depends on what I'm colouring as well. Obviously, if I'm drawing it tends to be mostly in pencil sketches, you know, in graphite drawings I will tend to stick to the rules because you don't have any colour, you're relying on your shadows and your highlights to indicate where certain areas are, whereas with colour you can differentiate with colour. You don't necessarily, you know, you could have one part green and one part yellow to show the difference, whereas when you're just working in graphite you don't really have that luxury. But when I'm doing something like this, so it's nice, just like, wee, let's go, let's just go to town. I'm trying to still show the shape of the knot. I'm probably over-emphasising it a little bit too much, but again, that's one of those things. Now I'm going to leave that to dry because I am going to smudge that if I go back over that. That is a guarantee. So I'll come up here and do my little bauble. Now I'm going to take oak again, which is not a colour that you would necessarily think would work, but not necessarily a colour that would go with saddle. However, I am confident that I will be able to work this in. Once again, it looks horrendous right now. Will look better momentarily. Now again, there is a method here. I'm going to let that dry, and once I've done all these darker parts, I'm going to go back in with the saddle brown in the rest of the areas, and just bring that sort of paler colour out a bit more. I'm just going to give it a little bit under her chin here. Yeah, it's definitely a girl. There's no way this reindeer's a guy. See, very, very strange, because normally everything is masculine with me. Just about everything. So again, I'm going to put this round here, and it's more to accentuate the curvature rather than a shadow. And I'm going to make that line quite obvious. Now this part in here is just going to be darker, so I'm just going to put a layer of that over there. And same in this part here. That is just a really light layer. I mean, I'm just like tickling the paper. I'm not really colouring in, I'm just pretending. The same down here. It's just, this is more of an accent rather than actually than doing anything with it. That's kind of hard to explain. And I'm going to do a little bit along the belly here. Just blend that out a little bit. I may have to go back in with that a little bit darker. I shall see how I go. And do the same round here, maybe a little bit darker on this side. And up the tail as well. It's something that I'm getting used to as I get a little bit more experienced as an artist. One of the things that I found very unnatural and very frustrating was the first time that I tried watercolour paints, and that's the wrong pencil, and I really struggled with the having to wait till everything's dry before we go again situation. You have to wait till each layer is dry with painting, and as someone who likes to use pencil, it's not something that I'm used to have to waiting for, and I find it really frustrating. But weirdly now, it doesn't bother me as much. I've become a little bit more patient as time's gone on with things like that, which that's quite nice. I am not the most patient person in the world at the best of times. Just ask anyone that knows me. It's strange because I have patience for some things and other things I just have no time for. And a classic example of that is that when we have newborn calves who are not suckling their mothers, and mum maybe doesn't have the best maternal instinct, I have the patience to sit with those animals and teach them how to do it. Sometimes it takes hours, sometimes it takes minutes. I have the patience for that. And yet there's other things that I really just absolutely do not have time for. It's very, very strange. Okay, let's go willow. I'm moving on up to the antlers now. Yeah, that's much more in keeping with what I had in mind. Again, this is just accents. I'm not actually going to do a huge amount here, and I'm going to make them quite obvious to keep that sort of slightly cartoonish style, as it were. Yeah, so I think it's funny. Generally speaking, I don't actually think it's patience. I think it's stubbornness with me. And another classic example of that is when I am playing computer games, you know, video games. If something happens, if I can't do a level or I'm stuck on a certain bit, I will not give up. I will not give in. I will keep going and keep going and keep going until it's done. And that is just sheer stubbornness and determination and nothing else. And yet there's some things I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have any patience for that. I did press down quite heavily on these pencils and I was putting this second layer on, and the payoff has been just what I was looking for. Oh right, we're really getting there now. Okay, while that's kind of drying off, I'm going to go back to my bow down here because I think that's it's not bone dry, but it's dry enough for me not to ruin it. So I'm kind of just going to go on the same principle as before, you know, as I did on this side, even though technically it's not correct, but that's okay. Sometimes it's okay not to be technical. I spend my whole entire life being technical with work stuff, so it's nice to let the creativity out. Even with my writing to a degree, some of you already know that I also like to write fiction in my spare time, and even with that it becomes very technical. It's only really the first step of the process that is creative, and after that, when you start to go back and do your line editing, which is absolutely soul destroying, by the way, there's nothing fun about that. You basically tear apart your own work, and it's painstaking, and you do have to be very precise, and you know, it's just not very fun at all. Right, okay, hurry up and dry. Alright, so I'm going to come down to the bells at the bottom now. The amber seems like a strange colour, and I know I'm talking to you like you know what I'm talking about. I might even go sienna gold just to make it interesting. I'm going to show you here, just in case you don't have these, but this is the sienna gold, which I think would look quite nice. And the colour that I used to begin with was a light coat of the mustard, and I was going to go to the amber, but it seems very brown, so I'm going to stick with the sienna gold. I'm going to risk it. So I want most of it to be down this side. And just as I would with my pencils, I'm going to put a really, really heavy layer down that side, and then I'm just going to kind of graduate it out a little bit. Make sure I'm doing it along this bottom lip as well. And I'm just going to run a tiny light bit down this side as well, because we want to get that curvature in there that I'm so fond of talking about. Oh, curvature. Make it ding dong shaped. Now I'm going to go against my better judgment here, and I'm going to start in the darkest part, and I'm going to pull that dark colour out and see how far it's going to go, which I think is going to be quite far if I'm perfectly truthful. But let's go anyway. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I say I'm not that bothered about, you know, really subtle transitions, because it is quite a sort of cartoony piece anyway. You know, you can get away with things like that a lot more than you would do perhaps with a more realistic piece, so I'm just going to enjoy that. Hey, that looks okay. Alright. Now with this one, because it's tucked in behind, I'm going to have to be careful here that this doesn't bleed in. That's going to come much further over. Again, I want to keep that curvature though, so it's quite important that we get this right. I hope you guys are actually going to sit and watch this video. I know it's a long one. I can see already I'm well over like an hour and 10 minutes. I will be editing a few parts out, but it seems to me, and you can correct me in the comments if I am wrong, but for the colouring community portion of my viewers, you guys seem to like longer videos because perhaps you can pop them on in the background while you're colouring something. Would that be fair to say? That is something that I do myself. I have noticed, I keep an eye on the statistics, you know, the analytics, the viewing figures and everything, and it seems to be that the colouring videos, I get a lot more watch time and a lot more views on the videos that are like an hour long. So if you have any feedback on that at all, please you know, feel free to leave it in the comments below, because that's something that would really help me out, and it also helps me give you what you want in terms of what you like to watch. This is almost dry, almost dry, almost dry. Come on, dry quicker. We've got to finish this, we're nearly there. Okay, I'm gonna go peacock blue, and I am literally just going to put a little spot of this down around my wreath, like so. And again, I'm not taking a lot of care over this, I don't need to. But I do need to make sure that the paper is covered in the areas where I want to have a little bit of colour down. So you can see here, I'm just going in these sort of like quick circular motions. I am not doing a huge amount. I'm not pressing particularly hard either. Again, because I don't need to. Now this is one of these ones where when you're doing something like this and you're going to graduate it out like I'm about to show you, it doesn't really need to be precise. It's just entirely up to you, you know, what you like as an aesthetic. When it comes to backgrounds and these kinds of things, I'm honestly not that fussed. I'm really indifferent. Now I'm going to take my big pointed brush here, and I'm going, oh right, okay, I've got several very, all my bristles are falling out. I think it might be time for me to replace this water brush. It is well used. I'm going to start at this outside edge, so I am literally just touching the ink and no more, and I'm going to start to work really quickly and pull it out. And I'm trying to go in sections here because I do have to work quickly, and I'm just going to keep going until it almost disappears. It's almost like a wash. Now I'm going to have a line and it's going to be around here, but there's nothing I can do about that. It's you can go back and forth, which is what I'm going to try and do here. It's never going to be super smooth, but I kind of want almost like a cloudy type background anyway, so that's kind of going to work in my favour right now. See, I'm actually not particularly keen on backgrounds full stop, you know, when they're just like plain things like this. I don't mind like filling in a background where I have, you know, I've drawn like mountains or, you know, blah blah blah. That's different. That's a totally different thing. But this just sort of filling in the white space idea, it's a bit of a different situation. In these little spaces here, I'm just going to quick run the brush over them. Come back down here just while it's still damp. I can work that out. And so you can literally just keep working the brush out into the centre until your pigment disappears into practically nothing. Oh, too much water. This is going to get very messy. Don't ruin the picture now. So I'm going to have to start pulling this out quite quickly. Just keep going. Again, this very much depends on what type of paper you're using as to whether or not it will withstand a volume of water, whatever that volume of water may be. I have to be really careful here. I'm taking the excess water off as I go, because I do want this to be quite pale. Hi everybody. Hi Pippi. I got visitors. They'd kind of disappeared off through the, when I say they, I mean the dogs. They disappeared off through with my husband there for a wee while because he's just come in. But Pip doesn't like to miss anything, so she's here. She's come to see me. Okay, so we're just working our way around now. We're nearly there. Come back here and just spread this out. See, this is the joy of this, is you don't actually have to, you know, you don't actually have to do much work, which is nice. This is probably a little dark in here, but it's round beside her nose, so Nancy's nose. So again, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Just make sure that I've got in round her nose. Oh no, I've got a bit of bleeding. That can be a glow from her nose. Okay, so lastly, I'm just going to go back in with my saddle brown, and we're going to do a bit more with Nancy here and make her, I was going to say make her a bit more pretty. She's pretty already. But you know what I mean. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So really now what I'm doing is I'm just using the saddle brown to put another layer on, but I'm leaving the spots which are obviously, you know, they're very obvious to you guys just now, where there would be a highlight. And it's kind of like we did with the bow and the nose, you know, it becomes quite obvious when I activate this part with water. That will become much more obvious. But this is what we want. Let me get down her leg there. And down there too, and a little bit on her tail. Okie dokie. Just get my baby water brush going again. You can see that colour's coming up a lot richer now. That's exactly what we wanted, so. Just get this blended out a little bit. Again, almost to nothing there. Just bring that up round a bit more. And then we'll do her belly. I know this is quite, if you're trying to follow, it's quite difficult because of the speed that I'm working at, but it's just one of those ones where this has to be done right now. Otherwise I'm going to end up with a very patchy reindeer. The beauty of YouTube at least is that if you do want to use the colours I've used, you can always play it back. You can, you know, you can watch it back, you can rewind it. You can watch it as many times as you want, you lucky devils. Just down this leg here. Just blend that out a little bit. Right, and onto her face now. If I was a reindeer and I looked like this, I think I'd be a happy reindeer. Look at those eyelashes. I know women that would kill for those eyelashes. Too late to go back over that now. I realise I've got a big streaky line there. It's a bit too streaky. Okay, and there we have it, everyone. That is Nancy, our finished reindeer. Thank you for your patience, and I hope that you have enjoyed looking at her. I think she's just turned out lovely, and I would be happy to put this on the front of a Christmas card. So no, 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 Mr. Jem. Tell me in the comments what you think, guys. If you've got any feedback at all, you know I always welcome it. And don't forget to leave me a question in the comments for our Ask Me Anything video coming up. You will also be entered into the Amazon giveaway should you wish to enter that too. Thanks very much for watching, guys.